Isn't that a riot?
O'clock, the appointed hour. We have a quorum present. We are going to have will be conducted in compliance with Nebraska's open meeting laws, a copy of which is on the back wall. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to be, we don't have a whole lot to cover this morning, but we're still going to hop around a little bit. Because we have the election commissioner here, and he seems to have other things on his schedule these days, I would like to first convene as the Board of Commissioners briefly, just to allow the election commissioner a venue. So with that, Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll for the Board of Commissioners?
Commissioner Borgeson? Commissioner Boyle? Commissioner Kavanaugh is not here. Commissioner Kraft is present virtually. Commissioner Morgan? Commissioner Rogers? Mr. Chair.
Present. Thank you. We are going to call on Brian Cruz first, the election commissioner, to give us an update and then allow him to get on his way.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Brian. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. So, won't take too much of your time up, but a week from today, I think we're all aware, is Election Day. And obviously, as things get closer, I think we're well aware that we could be in the spotlight here. We are. The president's coming tonight. Vice President Biden's coming on Friday to Iowa, I think, Council Bluffs. So we're getting, we could have the national attention here. So, and we are prepared. I will say we are prepared and we are ready to go. So with that, I'd first like to say, if any of you got the World Herald on Sunday, the countywide sample ballot was in the front section of that on pages 4A and 5A. The World Herald, we used to have to pay for that, and it was very expensive in the thousands of dollars. The World Herald has now become a very good community partner of ours, and they do that as a service to the voters of Douglas County. So I just want to thank the World Herald for being a great community partner on that and publishing that. That's a great service for the voters. So thank them for that. let's see, Karen, do I just scroll? That's what I thought. Oh, very good. Okay. So again, on our website is a great tool for everybody to use. It's votedouglascounty.com. If you go to the vote by mail, you can check the status of your by mail ballot. The deadline to request a by mail ballot was last Friday. So your two options now are to come to our office and vote in person or vote at your polling place on election day. Another valuable tool is right up there in the corner, the Find Your Voting information. If you put your house number and your zip code in there, it will show you a picture of your polling place, tell you your polling place where you go at in the actual facility, as well as provide a sample ballot of what you'll be voting on. So, and then of course, election night under election results, that will turn red beginning at 8 o'clock, and that will obviously be the popular icon on election night. Well, because it's blue now, so. You know, we like to be equal and fair. So in person, voting is going on at our office. Lines have lengthened. They were about 20 to 30 minutes last week. We're 45 minutes to an hour now as we get towards the end of this week, Friday and Monday again. I expect those lines to lengthen even more. You know, we saw last Friday on a deadline day, they were 2-3 hours at the height. But we are serving people, and as long as you're in line, by the time we close, we will serve you. The good news is, it looks like we got the bad weather out of the way yesterday and today. It's supposed to be like 65 and sunny from here on out. In fact, I think Omaha weather said it might even be 70 on election day. So that's wonderful. So our normal hours are 8:30 to 5, and we are located in the Bel Air Plaza at 120th and Center on the northwest corner. However, today, tomorrow, and Thursday, we will be open until 6 p.m. Then Saturday, this Saturday, Halloween, we will be open 9 to 1 as a service to voters. Additional hours. So some early voting statistics. These were as of yesterday. Obviously, these are increasing every day. So we received almost 185,000 requests for by-mail ballots, as you can see. We mailed 166,767. So again, like I said last week, the difference between the vast majority of those are just duplicates. We can only mail voter one ballot, regardless of how many times they request a ballot. You only get one ballot. In person, so far we've had 7,853 ballots handed out in our office. So we've handed out a total as of yesterday of almost 175,000 ballots. We have 131,394 ballots returned. So 75% of the ballots that are out there as of yesterday have been returned. And again, 80% of those are being returned by drop box. This is extremely important. After today, after you go home from work or go to bed tonight, the post office and obviously our office is recommending you do not mail your ballot. Do not mail your ballot after today at the recommendation of the post office. Use one of our drop boxes. It may get there. If you mail it in the next few days, it probably will get there, but the post office is recommending not to mail it after today. The drop boxes are all listed on your yellow instruction sheet if you got a by mail ballot, and they're on our website as well. You can always call our office too. The other thing is, get those ballots turned into us. Get those ballots turned into us as soon as you're comfortable. Do it this weekend. We'll be working all weekend to process those returns, because Monday we can count all of the early voting ballots that we have in-house, and then we will release those results at 8:45. So we're just encouraging voters this weekend to get those ballots turned in to us. And remember to sign that envelope. So I think everybody's aware our drop boxes look like this. Again, there's 13 of those around the county. Here's the map of where they are. There is an interactive map on our website. You can go there. If you actually click on the one you want, it'll take you to the more specific location there. And so for Election Day, about 3,000 Election Day workers is what it will take us to make this happen next Tuesday. When we started to staff for the polling places, we didn't know what we were going to have for the pandemic, what the turnout on Election Day would be. So we staffed for a normal presidential general. So at most precincts, most polling places, there will be 10 poll workers. So that should help move people through fairly quickly, and especially with the COVID, you know, the social distancing, the lines might seem a little longer, but you should move through fairly quickly. So it takes us about 2,540 actual poll workers. Of that, our clerks, our judges, and our greeters. You can see we've got 1,181 volunteers and 825 draftees. And our inspectors and assistant inspectors, we do have more draftees on that than volunteers, only because we promoted some inspectors and assistant inspectors from within, from folks who have done it before. But we had over almost 1,400 volunteers that signed up and worked for us, like 1,350, and we're using all of those. So our ratio of volunteers to draftees on that clerks, judges, and greeters, I think it's about 60-40. And historically, it's been about 50-50. So thank you, everybody who signed up to be a poll worker. We appreciate it. If you still want to sign up to be a poll worker, contact our office after the election. We have city elections right around the corner in April and May. We're already starting to work on that a little bit and think about that. So we can certainly use you. And then we have just other Election Day workers, the opening board, which is going on now. By law, we could start yesterday opening the ballots, where you actually take the ballots out of the envelopes. So we'll have the envelopes in one area and the ballots in another area, getting those ready to count on Monday. Then we'll have machine operators on Monday and Tuesday, ballot prep crew that will prep the ballots, then sealing and storage afterwards. So we store all of those by ballot number in case we have to do a recount, Commissioner. We can go and easily do that. And then telephone operators. We'll have about between 35 and 40 telephone operators on Election Day, and we do have scheduled at least 2 Spanish-speaking telephone operators for those individuals calling in that may need assistance in Spanish. And then we have extra board workers. If we find we need an extra worker here or there, you know, people will get sick. Some folks won't be able to do it on that day. It's a minimal number, but we do have to replace some election workers on Election Day. At the polling places, we have 203 polling places. OPS decided about a year ago to, I believe it's a teacher in-service day. Anyhow, there won't be children in the schools on Election Day, which we thank them for that. We think that's the best outcome for everybody. And there's other school districts in the metro area that have followed them as well. So we thank our partners on that. So election night, I'll just go over this again real quick. 8 o'clock is our first release. Those are folks who voted from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. 8:45, that's clearly going to be the big release. That's going to be the big release of all the early voting ballots that were turned in through Monday. 9:45 is the first nighttime results, so that's voters from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. and then we'll do 10:45, 11:45, and then after that as needed. On our website, beginning at 9:45, there will be an interactive map. So parties, campaigns, voters will be able to tell what precincts are being reported in each of those numbers. You know, we count the precincts as they come into our office. So again, it goes to make some sense that precincts that are closest to our office at 120th and Center will be counted earlier in the evening. Those in the county that are outlying will probably be counted later in the evening, but we will have that map so that folks can look at that just to kind of help them understand where the votes were that are being reported. Ballots counted after Election Day. Again, I'll just go over this quickly. Again, we did not change anything for this election. We always do this, but ballots that are turned in on Election Day. So those that we get out of our drop box at 8 o'clock on election night, we check those in Wednesday, open them Thursday, and count them Friday. I'm expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15,000 ballots, which would be about 9% of those that are still out there to be turned in on Election Day. So again, if voters are comfortable and you can get those in this weekend, we'd appreciate that because that just helps eliminate our workload afterwards. And we can get more results out, quite frankly, on election night then. Provisional ballots. So provisional ballots are processed on the second Thursday. We can go into Friday. They're opened on Friday, and then they'll be counted on that Monday, that second Monday after the election. So almost 2 weeks later. We have 7 days by law, 7 business days by law, which results in 10 calendar days because we have Veterans Day on that Wednesday, which is not a business day, and then 2 weekend days. In a typical presidential general, we'll have somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 provisional ballots. So we most likely will take the full 10 days to do that. If we get done before then, we'll open and count before then. But that's would be the last day that it would be. Very important announcement here is if you've requested a by-mail ballot, you need to vote that by-mail ballot. If you've requested a by-mail ballot, you need to vote that by-mail ballot. It's not really an option to wake up on election morning and say, oh, I got a by-mail ballot, but I want to go to my polling place instead. You can always vote a provisional ballot. We will never deny anybody the right to have their voice heard. But again, the provisional process takes a little bit longer, and then, you know, we have those 7 business days, 10 calendar days to process those on the back end. If you've requested a by-mail ballot and you haven't got it, or you've lost it, or you've made a mistake, please contact our office before Election Day, and we will work with you to correct that. So again, if you've got a by-mail ballot, please, you need to vote that by-mail ballot. So here we go. Our voter registration counts. Yesterday at 1 o'clock was when the state, voter registration ended Friday at 6 p.m. and the official numbers, then our reports were in yesterday at 1 o'clock. So Douglas County is at an all-time record high of 373,570 registered voters. We had almost 350 in the 2016 presidential. So we've gained 23,570 voters in the last 4 years. Democratic is 144,060. Republican is 132,377. Nonpartisan, 91,240. And Libertarian is 5,893. So I am predicting a voter turnout of 70% in Douglas County. We are typically right around 70%. The largest turnout we've had in recent history was in 2008 when Obama won at 72.6%. In 16, we were at 69.8%, I believe. So I believe that we're going to be right there in that 70% range. Now, we're prepared for more voters than that. And as we always say, this is one time when I don't mind being wrong. I challenge the voters, make me wrong, prove me wrong, go and have more than 70%. We'd love it. We'd be thrilled. The big thing for this election is early voting. 70%. We believe we're going to be right there. 70% of the folks are going to vote early, and 30% are going to be at your polling place. So, we're looking for a good election day. We're prepared. We're well prepared. We've got plenty of polling places. We've got all of our poll workers, and we are prepared for a good election day. So, important dates. Monday, November 2nd at 5 p.m. is the last day to vote in person at our office. Our office is not a polling place. You cannot come to our office and vote on election day. You can come and get a replacement ballot up until 8 p.m., and we'll be there to answer questions, but we are not a polling place. Voting ends at our office at 5 p.m. on Monday, November 2nd, and then, of course, Tuesday, November 3rd, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is Election Day. We've got the 203 neighborhood polling places across the county. I'm also very pleased to announce that last week at their board meeting on Thursday, Metro Area Transit, the bus service here in Omaha, they will be offering their what they call Bus to Ballot program. They will be offering free rides to voters on Election Day in Douglas County. They did it in 2016, reached out to them. They have a new CEO, new director, and a couple of the board members, and we worked, and so they're going to do that again. So that's a good service for the voters. I have also seen on some social media, I think Uber and Lyft may be offering discounted or free rides too. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I know that the bus company is here in Douglas County. So with that, we just, again, encourage everybody to get out and vote. We thank the voters for their support. We thank the board for their support. And I just want to thank my staff. Like all of us in county government, I think it's a labor of love. We do it because we love it, and we do love it. We love serving the voters, and we're working tirelessly, but we're happy to do it, and we're proud to do it. So I'd just like to thank my staff, the voters, and the board. So with that, I'll answer any questions. And remember, get out and have your voice heard.
Thank you, Brian. Commissioner Borges.
Yes, Commissioner Duda, if I could speak.
I'll have you next, Commissioner Kraft. I've got Mary Ann
Thank
first.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again, Brian, and your staff for all you're doing. Have we had any discussions regarding the early voting, having multiple sites for early voting versus just at your office?
To answer your question, no. No, we have not. It's something that we could possibly visit. Without getting into all the details, obviously there'd be a budget portion of it, staffing,
Right.
Hardware, buildings and stuff. But no, since I've been here, we have not. I don't know about previously, but since I've been here, no.
Okay, I just, even if it's the last week of early voting, that's when I think we started to see the lines really start to be longer.
Increase, yeah.
And it might be worth discussion for that last week, opening up a few more sites for folks. But anyway, that's something we can talk about at a later date.
Sure.
The interesting thing, and I'm actually excited about it, is that I have gotten more comments from people voting by mail this time for their first time, and saying that they really, really like it because they can sit at their dining room table and they can actually look folks up, or the initiatives of take time to really read them, understand them, and they feel like they're a more informed voter. So I really liked getting a lot of those positive comments. And again, just for the well-run elections,
Thank you.
as far as you and your office go, we really are and should be a model on how it's done. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Yes, Commissioner Borgeson may have asked my question, but I couldn't hear her ask. So if this is redundant, please forgive me. Have you, in the last week of the election, for future elections, not this one, thought about getting a trailer, like a construction trailer, and for early voting, one in North Omaha and one to South Omaha?
Yeah, we have not considered alternative sites since I have been the election commissioner.
And
Or
was that
had any,
Mary Ann-
go ahead, sorry, sir.
Was that Mary Ann's question? Because I really couldn't hear her.
Essentially, it was, yes.
Okay, thank you.
She hadn't thought of trailers, but yes,
Yeah,
the second
yeah.
location.
I would do it in the 4 quadrants.
Exactly, yeah. We'd have to,
Commissioner-
obviously, if we're going to do that, we'd have to have some system of fairness.
Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, I think quite a few years ago, when I was in the election office, we did have a branch. We were downtown on the east side of the old courthouse, and quite a different operation. And then I also opened a branch at the West Road Shopping Center. And the difficulty with that, it worked okay, but the difficulty is, and I'll ask Brian, I don't know if he'll be able to answer it, but how many ballot faces do you have?
So, well, for a general election, for this one, I think we have 370.
How many?
370, but the problem is, when you get into the primary, I
Right.
mean, we had almost 3,000 in the primary.
Ballot faces.
Yes, because you have all the different parties and
Right.
that. So we'd
So-
probably have to invest in some technology to make that work too.
And the ballot faces, what that means is that when you come in, the ballots have to be tailor-made for the voter. And it really does get to be quite a big job. And I was going to ask that kind of in another way, because I'm not a believer in rotation of names. I think that's pretty archaic. It was put in 1902 when the election law was originally written to stop some of this, because frankly, a lot of the voters were illiterate. And so when they told people to go vote for, there's 6 people running for the school board or something, or the city council, they had to, because the names, they started to rotate them to confuse the voters, so that the boss couldn't say, go in and vote for the third name, because it was always rotating. So that's kind of, I think, should be put aside. It's very expensive, and I think it's something we ought to talk about, but people get pretty freaked out. If you looked at the ballot that was printed in the World Herald, all the Republicans were on top, and that's by state law. It's the party of the governor, whatever it is, and the number of votes he got and so forth, so the Republicans were all listed on top. And so, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of difference. The Democrats were always second, and we'll see how that all comes out. So the rotation is really archaic, something we ought to talk about. But anyway, I don't want to get off on that now. We'll do that another time, but I do want to say how I dropped off a form for someone out there, and I didn't bother the other day. The line was around the building. I was going to go to the employee entrance, and I thought it kind of looked like I was getting something special, so I didn't. There was hardly a parking place out in that whole area, and I just dropped it in the box instead. But the staff out there is just doing a terrific job, and I really applaud you once again publicly for the job you're doing. It's transparent. It's everybody, I believe, is comfortable with what you're doing. You play no favorites, and it's just really terrific working with you. I really am proud of you being there. You're a standout.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Morgan.
Just want to say to Brian, your passion for this job is, unreal, and really appreciate it. You made a strong commitment. You have a great team, and I'm sure on next Tuesday, everything will go just perfect with your team out there. So good luck, and thanks for what you do, and appreciate your tremendous enthusiasm.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Further questions or comments? Commissioner Kavanaugh.
And thank you for this. This is excellent. And kudos on reaching an all-time high in voter registration. That's really key to a functioning democratic process. I'm excited about the fact that we're going to top 70% in the voter turnout.
I think so.
You know, there's no there until you get to 100, but 70 is certainly a passing grade, so
Yeah.
good for you. I had one question from
Sure.
a constituent, and you touched on this relative to, I have requested a ballot and then received it. I haven't voted it. I haven't turned it in. So on election day, I take that blank ballot to the polls. What happens when I show up to vote?
Sure. So if you show up at your polling place, it'll be marked in the book. We have paper books. The poll workers will be indicated that you requested a ballot by mail or that you've come to our office and picked one up. So the poll workers are instructed to ask the voter, did you receive it? If they say yes, they received it, then they will ask them to go and, if they're able to go and retrieve that ballot, whether it's from their vehicle or their home or wherever they may be, they'll be asked to go, if they're able to go retrieve that, vote that ballot, and then put it in one of our drop boxes around the county. If they say no, they didn't receive it, or they're unable to retrieve it for some reason, then they will be able to vote a provisional ballot, and then we'll do the research on the back end to make sure that they didn't vote both of those ballots. So again, that's why if you haven't received it or you've made a mistake or there's a problem, just contact our office ahead of time because it's a lot easier to get these things worked out ahead of time for both the voters and our office than it is on election day.
So thanks for that. Say I do receive it, I don't vote it, I bring it with me, it's in my pocket, I go to the poll. What happens then when I have the ballot in my physical possession?
So if you physically bring it in, the poll workers, we do not accept ballots at the polling place. So you'll have to take it to one of our drop boxes or one of the 13 drop boxes or bring it to our office. You can either bring it to our office or one of our drop boxes. So if you physically have it in your possession and you show up there, if you haven't voted it, then you'll need to vote it if you choose to, and then deposit it in a drop box. If you have voted it, then you will just need to deposit it in a drop box. And we're having greeters at each of our locations. So, you know, the greeter will see what's going on and be able to help the voter right then and there so they won't have to wait in line and, you know, wait in line and get all the way up to the poll workers before they get their answer. So we're going to have a greeter at each of the polling locations as an extra poll worker, but also to answer these types of questions for voters that are coming in, you know, to alleviate some waiting in line if it's not necessary and some frustrations.
So if I have it in my physical possession and I'm at the precinct, I can go fill it out and take it to the election commissioner on election day or a drop box on election day.
Correct.
Can I also, can I also at that point, if I have it in my physical possession at the precinct, request a provisional ballot at the precinct and vote that way?
You can. We will never deny someone their right to vote. So you can. If you have the ballot and for some reason you're insisting on wanting to do a provisional ballot, if you made a mistake or for whatever reason, you insist on doing a provisional ballot, yes, you will be allowed to do a provisional ballot. We will never deny somebody their right to vote. But then we'll have to do the research on the back end to make, kind of figure out what happened.
And just to close out on that, if I do it that way, I have it in my physical possession, I say, okay, give me a provisional ballot. I vote the provisional ballot. I just don't do anything with the mail-in ballot. I just take it home. Ultimately, your research will validate my provisional ballot and it will count.
That's right. And we have, overall, we have about an 83% acceptance rates on provisional ballots. So while provisional ballot process takes a little more time, if you just take your time and follow the steps and do it, there's a very high likelihood that it indeed, will be accepted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions or comments? Then I thank you, Brian.
Okay, very good. Remember, get out, vote. A week from today, if you have questions, contact our office. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Brian, we have this electronic.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
You betcha. Thank you, and thanks for moving me up on the agenda.
You're welcome. Glad to accommodate you. Having said that, I'm going to make an executive decision and say we are adjourned as a Board of Commissioners, and I will turn the floor over to Commissioner Borgeson to call to order the Health Center Board of Trustees.
It's recessing, right? Board of Commissioners?
Recessing the Board
Okay.
of Commissioners, correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we will enter into the Board of Trustees and why Sherry's taking a spot. If I may, I did want to, last board meeting, Commissioner Boyle asked about asking the governor about allowing Zoom meetings again for voting purposes. And I did have a conversation with our lobbyist about that and said, what's the best way to go about requesting that again? At the day that I talked to him, they actually were meeting with the governor, NACO, and the League of Cities. And the League of Cities has a bill that they were going to introduce next year about it. So we said, well, why don't you just ask? And so he was agreeable to allowing that again. So it would be like Mark or Commissioner Kraft would be able on our board to actually vote on things. We don't know for sure what conditions are going to be on that, but I was happy that he was at least willing to entertain it, even if it was just for the end of his DHM or through the end of the year or whatever. So more to come on that, but that was really good news.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Yep, you bet.
Participate.
Right.
I might want to do that too. We'll
Right,
see.
right. Well, and again, even for our Board of Trustees
Right.
meetings and things like that, it would be very beneficial. So
Yep.
anyway, once we hear what
Thank
the
you.
conditions are, hopefully they're not too strict. But if anything, allowing Commissioner Kraft to participate, would be great, so.
Thanks again. That's
Yep.
great. Thank you.
So we will go into the Board of Trustees. Roll call, please.
Trustee Boyle?
Here.
That was Trustee Boyle.
Here.
Trustee Kavanaugh? Trustee Duda?
Here.
Trustee Kraft? Can he hear us online?
Present.
Good.
Thank you. Trustee Morgan? Trustee Rogers? Chair Borgeson.
Present. We have two consent agenda items. One is the approval of the agreement with Choice Rehab LLC, and the other is the appointment of privileges for Dr., and it should be Jeffrey Castleman, MD, not James. So with that change, I would ask for a motion to approve these two items.
So move.
Any questions or comments? Does that include adjournment?
Yes.
And our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 23rd, just so everybody can get it on their calendar. Roll call, please.
Trustee Boyle?
Yes.
Trustee Kavanaugh? Trustee Duda?
Yes.
Trustee Kraft?
Voting virtually, yes.
Trustee Morgan? Trustee Rogers? And Chair Borgeson.
Yes, and thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now come back to convene as the Douglas County Board of Equalization. As soon as we get done shuffling clerks around. Welcome back. Could we please have the roll call for the Board of Equalization?
Commissioner Borgeson. Commissioner Boyle. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Kraft is present virtually but cannot vote. Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Rogers. Mr. Chair.
Present, thank you. Item A is approval of the minutes of the meeting held Tuesday, October 20th. Item B is to set Tuesday, November 10th as a date for hearing on certified assessment corrections. Motion by Commissioner Waring, second by Commissioner Rogers to approve A and B. Questions or comments? And then could we please vote?
Voting. Okay. You want to try one more time, or is it just not working for you? Okay. Go ahead. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
And for those who are looking at the screen, Commissioner Morgan did vote yes.
Citizen comments. Would anybody like to address the Board of Equalization on anything that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move to, we find resolutions D through J. Is there any of these items that anyone would like pulled out? If not, I would call for the vote on resolutions D through J.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Item K is a protest of certified assessment correction for CAC 20239 Millard Community Church.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Goodwillie, Douglas County Assessor Register of Deeds Office. This is a continuation of the list of CACs that we had last week from entities that had been exempt who had not filed a 2020 exemption application. This is for Millard Community Church. They've spoken with the clerk's office, Dan Esch, about protesting the value. At about the same time, they actually, too, sent us a 2020 exemption application, which we have recommended denial on because it's late, which poses kind of an interesting process dilemma that perhaps Teresa Ura could help us with. There's a protest of the value on file, because that's what you ruled on last week. The exemption application, typically from a process standpoint, we put together our recommendation and we send it to you for thumbs up or thumbs down on that. Now, I suspect it might be better to take them either both at the same time, because depending on what you do with the exemption application, it might render the protest moot. You follow? Okay. So I don't know how you want to handle it. I know we have a gentleman from the organization here. I would just make this note. The letter, apparently the letter that set the value for the property did get there and was received. The reminders that we sent to this exact same address on the exemption application process somehow went by the wayside, but it's his protest and the floor is his.
Yes, I have no excuse. We did receive 3 reminders. Jeff Malone with Millard Community Church.
Good morning.
Can you hear me okay? So I have no excuse on we did receive 3 reminders. We're a small church. Mail gets sometimes shuffled around. I don't know what happened. I filed for the last 4 years electronically. I went through my emails, saw that I didn't do it. I don't know. So, so I received we did receive a registered letter. Notice it was orange, stood out. Someone handed it to me when I went there one Wednesday night for church. Once the post office got it, started the whole process and just asked how I resolve this. I really don't know what to do. So, my mistake. If I've got a fee to pay, whatever.
All right. Commissioner Morgan?
Well, because of your total honesty with us, I would move that we go ahead and approve this.
Approve the exemption?
Yes.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the exemption. Commissioner Boyle.
The exemption is honoring their nonprofit status, so they pay no taxes. Is that what that is? Okay, good. That's what I.
If I may, Commissioners, there will be a late fee. There's a late filing fee that attends.
I'm sorry?
There will be they will get a bill for a late filing fee.
Understandable.
It's by law, it's the lesser of either 10% of the taxes due for each month they were late or $100. So in this scenario, the $100 a month late filing fee would be the lesser. So they will get a bill in December, and I want that on the record.
For $100.
For $100 a piece for each month that they're late.
Each month, and
Each month.
how many months?
Well, we're in the 10th month.
So you're talking about $1,000?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, you know, I mean, to me, and this is my position, has been this way for years and really consistent with what we're trying to do. Nonprofit organizations like churches and food pantries and all these places exist, and they are given special treatment. They are held above other properties because of the contribution they make to our community and helping our community be a better community, frankly, in all cases, I believe. And I think we ought to honor that. And I mean, if we're going so far as to say we give the exemption, then I think the exemption should apply to the penalty as well. And particularly with the churches he described, where it's there is no, bishop apparently, and there's no structure in the sense of a lot of the organized churches, other organized churches. And so it's kind of hit and miss. And we see this with a lot of independent churches, and I think they should not be penalized for that. They're doing their best and they're being honest. And so I would move, if you want to go ahead and we can do this together, or we can do it separate, do it together. I would move that the late fees be waived as well.
Well, first place, I'm not sure statutorily.
We're going way beyond what we
Well,
have
we
legal
can't, we probably
authority.
can't do either.
Well,
Teresa, we know that we can't do either.
That is correct.
We know that, but we're
Teresa,
going to
York
do it
County
anyway.
Attorney's Office. So the board needs to go ahead and allow exemptions as permitted by law. You seem to have an understanding of what I'm about to say, so I don't know that I need to say it. With regards to the penalty, the language is very, very clear. It says shall. The penalty shall be assessed. So I simply wanted to bring the penalty language before you and let you know what the statute said.
Well, I understand that. I guess maybe what we ought to do is do it separately, just in case I have run into some tax people from Lincoln and they said, oh, you're the one. So anyway, why don't we do the exemption that's clear that we've done in the past, and then do the waiving of the fees separately in case the state comes after it. We don't want to jeopardize the exemption. Does that make sense? Okay,
did you have more, Commissioner Morgan?
And the only thing I'd say about that, I agree with Commissioner Boyle for certain. Dealing with the COVID problem and people not coming into where they work and all that's been going on, I think this is totally legitimate under the circumstances, and I know that all churches, charities are having a real challenge in these times, and I think we're doing the right thing, and if we have a suit, then so be it. But I like the idea, Mike, that you're doing it 2 stages, so I'm going to be supportive of that for sure.
Thanks, BJ.
Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Commissioner Morgan really said it. And again, most people are not going to put themselves between or up at that podium if they're really, I mean, and you told the absolute truth about what really happened. And again, I said last week when we did these that there's always exceptions to the rules. And again, you said it too, Commissioner Boyle, that these nonprofits, they're small, they don't have the big staff to do all of the paperwork, and so I'll be supporting the request for your exemption to be granted.
Okay, further questions or comments to the motion? Okay,
You're going to get a big break.
correct.
Please don't make these people look like dummies.
All right, then I would call for the vote, please.
Motion passes 6-0.
I would make a motion that we waive the fee in light of this being a nonprofit that contributes to our society. And also, I think what Commissioner Morgan said about COVID and the lack of being able to really get into things and to show up as usual. It's been very difficult for a lot of people. So I would make a motion that the penalty be waived.
Okay. I went along and voted for this one, which I don't normally do. But we do at some point kind of have to follow the law.
Go ahead and vote for it.
We're granting an exemption that we have absolutely no authority to grant. So just bear that in mind. Don't take this as gospel, whatever we're.
Oh, gospel, that's a good one.
Whatever we're about to do here. So, and that was intentional. Okay, having said that.
Okay.
Further questions or comments to the motion? I'm not aware of need for executive session. Can the motion include adjournment?
Yes.
Okay, seconder okay with that? Yeah. All right, then I would call for the vote.
One moment, please.
And you know, this might even.
It's not my money, but when you wonder why you get all sorts of crazy out of time stuff up here, this is a clue.
Yeah, reap what you sow.
This may qualify for CARES funds.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes 4-2. Commissioners Rogers and Duda voting no.
Thanks, Mike.
All other commissioners voting yes.
I'd like to speak to Mr. Malone for just a moment, if I could. Mr. Malone, if you hear from anyone about any penalties or anything, would you please contact us? Contact
Absolutely.
Ellen again?
Yes.
And we'll make sure that you're protected
Okay,
as best we can.
very good. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we stand adjourned as the Board of Equalization. We will now convene as the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, and could we please have the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Borgeson. Present. Commissioner Boyle.
Here.
Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Kraft is present virtually but cannot vote. Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Rogers. Mr. Chair.
Present, thank you. 1A is approval of the minutes from the Board of Commissioners meeting held October 20th. B is claims for payment processed through Tuesday, November 3rd.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Rogers to approve 1A and B. Questions or comments? Then could we please vote? Okay.
Motion passes. Commissioner Morgan abstaining. All others voting yes.
Thank you. This brings us next to the consent agenda, where we will find items A through H.
Motion to approve.
Move to do separately.
That was
D6.
D6, the agreement with Charles Drew. All right. Do we have a second to the motion? Okay, is the maker and seconder agreeable that D6 is not
Yes.
included? Okay, so we will come back to that item separately. Anything else in the consent agenda that anybody would like pulled out? Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Just a few informational questions on some of these items, and I believe that the Director of the Health Department is with us today, Dr. Poor.
Adipoor, Douglas County Health Department.
Good morning, Dr.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just briefly, and this is so the people watching can understand what we're doing. Sorry. My technology is always getting the better of me, I'm afraid. Just turning things off is
Me too.
There are a number of items on here that appear to be under the Health Department's purview. And I'm speaking specifically, I guess, on items 9, 10, 11, and 12. Correct me if they're not all on your plate, but those are what I have questions on. Are they under
Yeah.
your authority?
Yes.
Okay. So just to take them in order, we're dealing with what looks like another spike in COVID. As far as I can see, the latest numbers are Nebraska has identified 64,506 cases, 609 deaths, up both in cases in the last week, about 800 a day averaging, and deaths are up as well. Douglas County with 21,830 cases, 1,502 in the last 7 days, 6 deaths in the last 7 days for a total of 221 deaths in the pandemic so far. So the one that we start with here in 9, amendment with Department of Health and Human Services Division of Public Health Epidemiology regarding contact tracing, $240,000. This is a key part to battling the pandemic, is contact tracing. And could you just briefly outline for us what exactly this $250,000 for contact tracing will do?
Okay, good. Thanks, Commissioner. So $240,000 were given to each local health departments over a 2-year span. The contract is for 2 years. And the goal was to potentially hire 2 individuals who are contact tracers for each health department. Because even so, we have 180 contact tracers at PRC that we are using. You know, it's important that we have internal capacity. And that's what this grant is about. It's for us to hire 2 people on staff.
Okay. And they would be added to the complement of contact tracers that you currently have to go out in the community and find out who got the virus from whom, basically.
Exactly. That's their goal. It's contact tracing and overseeing the contact tracers, because, you know, you can have 200 people out there doing contact tracing. Somebody needs to bring all of this together and say, okay, what they are seeing, what is the commonality of it? So there's a lot of work that is going on at this time.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I think that's a wise use of our resources to combat the pandemic. Number 10, agreement with, is it Kresge Foundation regarding an office for health equity and racial justice?
So this is a little bit of a misnomer on here, and I just saw it this morning. My secretary sneaked it by me. So the Kresge funds are here to really address the resolution that we passed, and you all have seen it. And on the resolution, there are 22 action items. One of the action items is potentially establishing an office of equity, but the $50,000 is just going towards it. We want to start seeing some actions, not just a resolution out there.
So this
it's
is
broader.
This is $49,633 of county money going to the Kresge Foundation to help us stand up this initiative?
It's the other way around. It's the Kresge Foundation giving the Douglas County Health Department $50,000 to do this.
That's great. Number 11, the COVID CARES contract with Doris Lassiter Consulting LLC, $65,940. What's that?
Correct. So both of those 2 items you have approved as County Commissioner under the CARES proposal that I brought forward to increase community awareness. And Doris Lassiter is really active in the church community in North Omaha, and so she is trying to educate health ambassadors that can work with churches to actually get the word out, make sure that they have enough PPE, make sure that people are wearing masks, and what are the things that they need to be concerned about. So that's what this, she has, I think now is saying she has like 20 health ambassadors that she is training on a weekly basis on different aspects.
My light is on. I'll come back on my second.
Well, you're the only one. You're the only one, Commissioner.
Thank you. So, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you exactly when you outlined Doris Lassiter as active in which community, did you say?
North Omaha churches.
North Omaha?
Yep.
Okay. And this consulting that she will do is consulting with whom?
She is training health ambassadors. Health ambassadors are individuals from the community who are trying to play a role in their churches in regards around health. So she's also working with Creighton, who has also a contract with the health department around health ambassador. So it's all of this working together, but really with North Omaha churches. She is trying to bring testing into that. You may have seen she has already done that twice to bring testing to North Omaha.
So the $65,000 is specifically to fund her?
It is funding her, and I think she is also reimbursing those individuals who are health ambassadors that she has trained. She's giving them stipends.
I see. And she would hire those people or contract with those people?
Correct, correct. It would all be her job.
Then number 12, a contract with the Women's Center for Advancement. It looks like $50,032.32.
Correct. This is the Women's Center came forward to us. This is under CARES Fund too, that they are seeing a lot of victims that are coming to the Women's Center who have mental health issues and so on regarding to COVID. And they are trying to reach out to those individuals and provide training and consultation to them.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Boyle.
Doctor, I want to thank you, first of all, for how you're handling this pandemic in our community. It's you're doing an extraordinary job, you and your staff. Something I'm really curious about is there doesn't seem to be, and the New York Times has some articles on it, but it seems to me that it's very obvious that that President Trump is supporting herd immunity. That what he's talking about, people don't wear masks, and everybody's catching this virus and everything, and there seems to be no response to when were you tested last, and all these sorts of things. And it seems like that's what the national administration is pushing, is herd immunity. And I'm very concerned about it because it is sending, to me, a very inappropriate and illogical solution to the pandemic. And I believe, and I'd like you to comment on, if you would, on the necessity of wearing masks, of social distancing. I've heard you many times on television say so. But I'd like to ask you what your position is on wearing masks and so forth. Just, I know what it is, but would you state it once again for us? What you think we ought to be doing to fight this pandemic?
But so to your first comment, herd immunity, there was the great Barrington Declaration that came out actually from some very distinguished physicians who were pressuring herd immunity, and protecting our vulnerable is really the way to go. Since then, we have the John Snow Memorandum that 6,400 scientists have signed and have said that herd immunity would really be a bad procedure to go ahead. And it's actually a fallacy because potentially 30% of our population is vulnerable. And how you will protect those is really not possible at this time. And to put them in isolation is really not ethical. And at the same time, what you would see is you would see so many death and hospitalization. You have nothing seen at this time if we would go towards herd immunity. So by all scientists, major scientists and organizations, it is a bad idea to talk about herd immunity. Now masks, you ask me in general, masks have proven to be effective at this time. They are non-pharmaceutical interventions that we can do. We have lots of studies right now. As I was sitting here, I just listened to another presentation from some physicians. New data that is coming out. We have a Lancet study that shows that actually masks are decreasing transmission by 65%. Social distancing is decreasing transmission by 90%. So by all of these scientists and research and consensus document, we know that mask wearing works by decreasing the transmission. And at this time, it is the only thing we have. We do not have a vaccine. We have some treatment, but you know what public health is about? It's all about prevention. We want to prevent people from going to the hospital. And so if this is what we can do at this time, this is the right way to go.
Doctor, thank you very much. And I do I speak for an awful lot of people who aren't here. We appreciate your leadership.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments to the consent agenda before we vote? This is the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. Well, I can't agree with this, all of these items on the consent agenda, and I don't necessarily put this all on Audi Poor, because you people are the ones that make the decisions. But as I read through all of these items, I think of words. Words matter. What is reasonable? What is necessary? What is logical? What is constitutional? Some people in these chambers say citizens come down here and make sound bites. Well, Mike just made a sound bite about herd immunity. But you know, there's a term called herd mentality. And that's the rush to your government for funds, regardless of what it is that you need it for. And as you read through this, I mean, excuse me, but all these people need funds because of COVID. A lot of these people are 501c3s that have donors, but also other benefactors, and they still come to us for money for things that are not necessarily the existency of their health or a citizen's health. It's for things like physical plant, things like programs, which, oh my gosh, reminds me of 1984, things like early intervention, early childhood education intervention, physical plant, things like that. Common sense of these things are government has taken over our lives. And a lot of that is because somebody on a national agenda has come to Omaha and said, here's the programs you need to adopt. One of those was early childhood education, which tied to early intervention. But did anybody on those councils tell the citizens of Omaha when we were listening to them and voting for them that we're going to come back to you time after time after time for more money to impose on your life and to take your rights away of certain things? No, they didn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle.
My vote for all of these requests really is in line with what I heard when we were talking about the Juvenile Justice Center quite a long time ago, and people said, why don't you do something to intervene to stop some of the problems? And that's what many of these are, this early, for example, number 6 about fetal infant mortality review under Omaha Healthy Start. All of these things, and then the Women's Center for Advancement, all of these things are efforts to make life better at the beginning and during their lives up to the point where trouble may happen. So these are good solutions to community problems in my eye.
Thank you. At that, I will call for the vote on the consent agenda, less item D6.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. This brings us back to item D6, an agreement with the Charles Drew Community Health Center regarding fetal health infant mortality review under Omaha Healthy Start.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, signed by Commissioner Morgan.
Mr. Chair, can I just stating that I need to abstain because I sit on the board.
Commissioner Rogers as the president of the board. Oh, the Charles Drew, you're on the board of Charles Drew. Okay, very good. Thank you. Appreciate the clarification. All right, then let us vote on D6.
Motion passes. Commissioner Rogers abstaining, while other commissioners voting yes.
Thank you. We move to recognition and proclamations. We begin with Marcia Doris, Douglas County employee retiring from the health department after 13 years of service. Is Marcia present? Or Jeff Bitterman of the purchasing department, who is retiring after 24 years of service. I would entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Borgeson, second by Commissioner Boyle to approve A and B.
One moment, please. Okay, thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next is a resolution honoring the life of David Carnes and expressing the board's most sincere sympathy to his family upon his passing. And this comes from Commissioner Borgeson.
It's really from all of us, but go ahead and read it.
All right. All right. I'm gonna slip my mask down for this. Whereas in 1987, David Carnes was appointed to the United States Senate to fill the unexpired term of Senator Ed Zirinsky. And whereas after his time in the Senate, David Carnes became a highly successful, well-respected attorney at the Omaha law firm of Kutak Rock, where he served as the firm's principal federal lobbyist for 28 years. And whereas David Carnes passed away at the age of 71 on Sunday, October 25th, after a months-long battle with cancer. And whereas David Carnes has a long history of civic involvement, including starting Liz's Legacy, a charitable organization founded to raise money for cancer research named in honor of his first wife, who died of cancer in 2003. And whereas David Carnes also helped launch Kicks for a Cure, which also raised money for cancer research. And whereas David Carnes also served on numerous other charitable boards, including the Omaha Children's Museum, Methodist Hospital, Omaha Home for Boys, and the local chapter of the National Conference of Christians and Jews, now known as Inclusive Communities. And whereas in 2012, David Carnes was honored with the Distinguished Nebraska Lander Award from the Nebraska Land Foundation. And whereas David Carnes took great pride in his public service and had a passion for serving others. Now therefore be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County that we hereby honor the life of David Carnes and express gratitude for his many contributions to Nebraska and the Douglas County community. Be it further resolved that this board hereby expresses its most sincere sympathy to the family of David Carnes upon his passing, dated today's date.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Borgeson, second by Commissioner Boyle. Questions or comments? Commissioner Boyle.
Yes, if I could comment.
Go ahead, Commissioner Kraft.
Yes, David was a personal friend and a very wise person. The last time we talked, which wasn't too long ago, it was about the CARES Act. We were talking about his wife, Liz. And I mentioned to him that I do think, and I thought way back when I was on the library board through this Omaha City Council, I wasn't a board member, but I attended their meetings. I thought we should name a library after Liz. And I mentioned to him I would still like to see that happen because she was a very strong advocate for the libraries. And perhaps now it should be the David and Liz Carnes, Liz Carnes Public Library, if they name a library. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kraft. Commissioner Boyle.
Commissioner Kraft, that's a terrific idea. I really like that. It's both of those folks were incredible people. And Liz, when she was suffering from her cancer, was at UNMC, and both of my daughters went to school there, and one in nursing and the other in medical school. And Liz befriended one of them, and they became very good friends and stayed in contact and so forth. She too was a remarkable person. I was thinking about Dave because I was surprised he had called, and I called him back, and that's when he kind of nonchalantly said, I'm in clinical trial in Boston, and it didn't register right away, and I said, "You're where?" And he told me, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to bother you." He said, "No, I'm glad to talk to you about this. I want to get this handled." And it was just amazing. I mean, we talked about what was happening with the city and so forth else, and how much they needed and for what and everything. He was totally clued in and totally just like he always was, intelligent and right on point. And he came here a few months ago and represented a client who was being treated not real well. And he told me about it. I met him in his office and we talked. And it was kind of strange the way that the client was being treated about property that looked like they were doing things in addition to what they said they were doing. And we cut through it and gave him what he needed. And I'm glad that we did. We told this client that we trusted him. And I really thinking about Dave because it was such a shock that, I mean, I knew that he was ill, obviously, and very ill. But when I think about him, we served on the Federal Home Loan Bank Board of Topeka, used to fly around to four different states to have meetings. But I remember Dave really, I think the way to describe him best is that the way he practiced politics and the way I practice politics, the way to describe it simply is the way it was. It's not that way now.
Thank you. Further comments concerning Senator Dave Carnes?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
I'd like to echo some of those sentiments that Commissioner Boyle expressed. I worked with Dave most recently on the CARES funding for the city of Omaha, and he was remarkably on top of it for a man who was battling for his life with cancer. I respect his position, despite the fact that we come from different ends of the political spectrum. I always found him fair and open and truly a good man and a good public servant. We'll miss him. My condolences and deepest sympathies to his family.
Thank you. With that, I would ask for the vote, please.
Mr. Chair, while we're voting, I think Mr. Kraft had a great idea. May I suggest that the board consider writing a letter to the mayor and possibly a library the next time the opportunity comes up to be named after Mr. and Mrs. Carnes, Liz and Dave Carnes.
I know we have at least one library board member watching this today with Joe Giles, so perhaps this message is already going through to the library board.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, motion
Yes,
passes 6-0.
Commissioner Boyle, if I may
Thank you, Dan.
qualify that, all of my ideas are great ideas.
What's that again? What did he say?
All of his ideas are great ideas.
We're gonna have to turn you off. We're out of power, Mark. We have to cut power.
Okay,
Motion passed 6-0.
thank you all for that.
Sorry.
Citizen comments. Would anybody like to address the Board of Commissioners on anything not on the agenda? This would be the opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. Particularly in an election year, there's one item I don't think gets very much discussion in Omaha, and that is, since we are a constitutional republic and founded on religious principles, not recognizing any particular denomination, but that's the fact. We really need to have a good discussion of culture. Our culture, as we understand it, versus the culture of immigrants as they understand it. They're all welcome to come as long as we all take the oath to support and defend our Constitution, not any particular other constitution or law or tradition. But to assimilate, that means you have to swear allegiance to our Constitution and our flag, which we all do. That brings to mind the discussion of Islam. Is that a religion or a political system? If it's a political system, then those that practice Islam have no standing under our Constitution. They're welcome to come. we'd like to have them assimilate and be a United States American citizen, but not to promote other systems, whether they're Muslim or not. I do follow Dr. Mark Christian, and I agree that Muslims are victims of a political system, not a religious system. That needs to be discussed so that we can have a discussion with Muslim people that want to learn how to be a constitutional citizen in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anybody else wishing to address the board under citizen comments?
I would, but I can't, can I?
Not really.
Huh?
Luis Jimenez, 3306 Burt Street. And Mr. Boyle, you can address the
Thank you,
people
Luis.
at the podium. You can come here at the podium. I want to address what Larry Storr said about immigrants, since he's not an immigrant. And that is that for most immigrants, the strategy to live in peace in a foreign place is to incorporate what is good and leave what is bad in the new area that they're living in. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis.
Thank you. Ironically, with our library discussion, we almost had a report from the director of the library now, but there's a pandemic going on and somebody somewhere got a little bit sick and that has had to be postponed. She will be giving their annual update of the Omaha Library because of the library tax that the county contributes. And we've already had the election update. So this brings us to item C, Douglas County CARES Rental Assistance Program update. Melissa Seawick. When this is done, I think I'm going to start calling her Saint Melissa. Or do you have to be dead to be a saint? Never mind. You're doing an awesome job. Again, on Sunday, I get an email from somebody panicking, and I forward it, and Melissa responds within like an hour. I mean, it's the service she is giving us is just so top-notch.
Good morning, Melissa Seawick, Director of General Assistance. This is the report, the 3-month report for the CARES Rental Assistance Program. So the Douglas County CARES Rental Assistance Program is set to provide funds to assist low to moderate income individuals who are at or below 100% AMI with unpaid rent due to a COVID-19 related hardship. Currently, the maximum benefit is $7,000. So this is a breakdown of the applications we have received. Thus far, we received just under 4,400 applications. We have processed over 3,200 applications. We have 499 applications that are in process. Those are ones that we are actually working on right now. And there's 644 applications that we are awaiting the landlord response. We have sent out emails to everyone who had their email address and the landlord's email address listed as the same, letting them know that their landlord probably didn't get the information and to contact us so we can go ahead and fix that. We have heard from some of them. Just while I was sitting back there, I ended up marking 50 applications that says that we're waiting landlord response as a duplicate. So a lot of folks have just reapplied on their own with the correct information. So I feel like we've gotten a great response from landlords thus far.
Good.
As far as our approvals and denials go, I have a graph just kind of looking at the approvals and denials from August forward. Thus far, we've had 1,889 applications that have been approved. We have 1,341 applications that have been denied. 85% of them are for insufficient documentation or unable to verify financial hardship. That said, those denials are not unique denials. We have had a report ran, and just over 600 applications have not since been approved. So our number is pretty much cut in half as far as denials. And then again, if somebody has been denied 4 times and still has not been approved, they are going to still show up within that 600 number. So that kind of just gives a better idea of we have not denied 1,300 people. And then again, over half of those have since been approved. As of yesterday, we have authorized just under $4.5 million in rental assistance. This morning, we hit $4.5 million. We have provided assistance that has helped serve just under 2,500 adults and just over 2,700 children in Douglas County. And the average assistance award is just over $3,800. And then the next slide shows kind of a breakdown of where the applications are coming from. And then I've provided a map of kind of where those locations are. I've highlighted the 3 most, where we've got the most applications, and those haven't changed throughout the whole process. It's 68104, 68111, 68134. As far as the number of approvals and denials with each zip code, they're pretty much the same throughout, unless we have, one zip code that only has 1 or 2 applications. I just kind of wanted to give you guys a example of what we are seeing as far as applications received. This is just applications that I've worked on just last week. So there's 72 applications. 14% of those applications I was able to approve upon submission of the application without having to do any follow-up. 43% of those I had to follow up with, and I have since approved based on the documentation I've gotten from them. And then there's 39% of those that I had to request additional information. I still have not heard any response. So I will follow up with them again. And then I have 4% thus far that I have found that they were fraudulent applications. So we're spending a lot of time on those applications that maybe denied anyway. The applications trying to get folks approved. Some of them are just as simple as they didn't provide a signed lease or their name wasn't on their pay stub for whatever reason. So we're just asking them to go ahead and confirm that. Sometimes we're following up to get confirmation as far as what rent is owed because it was different from what the tenant said and what the landlord said. And there's other applications where somebody will upload a picture of a cat in every single upload. I've literally received that. So I still follow up with them and tell them what we need to try to get them approved. So we're kind of all over the place, but we're doing what we can to get folks approved. Obviously, you can tell by our numbers that we are getting applications out, we are approving folks, and we are going above and beyond trying to do that. Kind of the process, again, we have the tenant that submits the application, landlord submits their portion, we review it as a level 1, and we complete outreach if necessary, and then they give a recommendation, and then a level 2 reviews everything, and we go ahead and authorize payment after that. There are times where we don't receive all the documentation that we need, but after talking to the individual, we find out more about their story. We find out that they couldn't provide us one pay stub because they just got back from maternity leave, worked 2 weeks, then they got laid off because of COVID. Those applications, we're still able to approve them. We've done it in a lot of cases where it is kind of quote unquote a self-attestation that's allowing us to fill in the blanks of why they don't have that documentation. So we communicate, like I said, we are reaching out, communicating with these applications, the applicants, whether they submitted a picture of their cat or they just needed a name on a pay stub. And then again, our help desk is Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, 444-7232. We have our website, douglascounty-ne.gov, where you can find more information on our program and the application. If anybody needs assistance filling out the application, there are nonprofits on the website. But we are doing applications ourselves every single day. People are walking in, we're assisting them. Tiffany and I have been extremely busy with this program and are excited for 2021. So,
Very good. Thank you for that. Questions or comments from this week? Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Thanks for this. The reports have really come a long way since we started off this. I can see that you've worked hard on it. This is great. So 4.5 of the $10 million authorized has been sent out. Is that fair?
that is correct.
Okay. And there are roughly 8 weeks left in the year. What is the weekly dollar amount that you're now sending out? Is there an average?
Every night, we're at least sending out $100,000 in assistance. It's been as much as $500,000, so it kind of varies. Obviously, the further we've gotten along with this program, the more, we're getting out, but it varies.
Okay. If you could work up an average, say, go back, 3 or 4 weeks and see what it is. I presume, because your numbers have gone up significantly since the last time you reported to us, that number is going up, that weekly number is going up. It appears that, the apps are going up. And so just so that we can project what happens in the next 8 weeks with the remaining $5.5 million. Could we get a number?
Yep, I will do that for you.
Thank you. I see that there is a crossover in approvals and denials. Sometime it appears in September. Is there a reason that approvals have gone up and denials have kind of plateaued?
We are getting the information we need to process the applications.
Okay. Is self-attestation now being utilized?
Well, we've always used self-attestation in the sense that has been described by some other agencies as a check of the box. We are not doing. We are, as I stated, allowing people to provide us with information to fill in the blanks if they're not able to provide us with all of the documentation. So yes, their verbal self-attestation of why they only had one pay stub, why there was a gap or anything like that, they're able to self-attest. And as long as all of the documentation and their story adds up, we are able to approve on that. But it is not a simple check of the box.
I appreciate that. In those cases that you just described, and I don't expect you to have this off the top of your head, I'd like to see how many of those there are relative to the overall number of applications. I mean, we're moving in a direction I think that is good to get to, kind of a self-attestation, call it what you will, to bring down this denial rate and get the applications approved so that people can get their rent assistance on time. Do you have a plan in the event that you're unable to expend the full $10 million for the remaining balance at the end of the year?
I believe that would be up to the commissioners, not myself, to determine what would happen with the funding.
Right. So just to recap, you can get us a number on the cases where you indicate that you've gone into additional analysis of people's kind of self-attestation and given approval?
That would be very difficult because we don't keep that detailed of notes as far as everything. I can tell you how many cases that we've had to do follow-up with. But as far as those folks that quote unquote have self-attested and been able to fill in the blanks, I would not be able to accurately give you that information.
The big concern here is that we have applications, basically 40% of which are people who give up on the process, requested additional info and no response, 39%. You know, that's a concern to me. That's an enormous percentage of people who are trying to get rent assistance, but are frustrated by the system and the process and just give up and go away. I think that that's a number that we should probably look into a little bit, and I will be following up with you. For instance, the case that I specifically reached out to you about, a woman who appeared on the face of it to meet our requirements and was denied. So getting that broken out, the 38% denial because request for additional information and no response, is something that maybe this self-attestation thing could bring way, way down.
Those individuals that are reported on, those are applications I started working on last week. So none of those have been denied. Out of those 72 applications, other than those 3 fraud, none of those have been denied. All of those individuals who have yet to respond from my original request, I'm reaching out to again. I was just giving you guys a sample of kind of last week's snapshot. So I don't think it's a fair statement to say that they have simply given up. They just have yet to respond. I had to respond while I was sitting here, so my stats would be different if I was reporting right now. So I think that a lot of times with the folks that we don't hear from, a couple of these applications that I reached out to, their applications were very suspicious, and I don't expect to hear back from them. But I think if people need assistance and they have the documentation or have a story to fill in the gaps, they are reaching out. It's up to $7,000 that we can assist with, and I don't know anybody who would just be willing to give up on $7,000 of assistance.
Yeah, we hope not. And you know, the point is that 39% are people who are not getting assistance for whatever reason. And we just want to make sure that the qualified ones in that 39% actually do get the assistance that we want them to get. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan.
Melissa, thank you and your team so much for what you're doing. I know you're responding to all the calls yourself and others, so I appreciate that. And I think what I heard you say is about 100,000 a night being sent out. Did you say that? For rental assistance earlier?
Yeah, it's at least $100,000 a night we're sending out.
Which would mean that there's around $2-3 million a month going out. Not sure Commissioner Kavanaugh got that, but so that's a good amount of money that is going out. The other thing, on the landlord response, I noticed you're having some challenges reaching some of the landlords?
Some of the applications are simply that they are a duplicate application, and the person has since just reapplied with the correct information. So it's just simply, like I said this morning, I was going through the system manually, kind of seeing if there were any duplicates. And then there's some people that have since moved out, and there's some people that the landlords just are not going to respond for whatever reason. And we've had some that have called us and just said that they are not planning on filling out the application for the person. It's a variety of reasons, but I think overall, when you're looking at the number of applications we have received, and then given the margin of error as far as how many of those applications have already reapplied, those applicants have reapplied, I think we're in pretty good standing. And a lot of times people are reaching out to us. If their landlord hasn't submitted it, they're reaching out to us, and we do find it's maybe a finger flub in the email, and then we're able to reach out to the landlord and contact them.
If any of us, and I speak, I think, for all the commissioners, I think we'd be glad to call some landlords if you're having trouble. I know Commissioner Boyle and I seem to always be pretty much on the same page. If we get the names, we'll call some of them, and I would want you not to just have one commissioner do it, but split it up, and we're glad to help you. The other thing that bugs me, a lot of things, but the one thing that last week you sent out a sheet to us in an email of the people charging the late rents, the landlords charging and maybe taking a little bit of an advantage, and you can always correct whatever I say. I think that's what we've seen happening, and then some of them are charging $5 a day late charge, even though they know they're going to get the money from us. It looks like the applicant is good and this follows all the procedures. I still, and I said it a month ago, I'm for naming some of the landlords. I mean, I'm a landlord, and I'd want you to call me right away to tell me, hey, did you know you're doing this or whatever? I'd want to hear about that. And then if I don't respond, I'd want you to come here, whether I was on this board or not. And I mean that because we're in such a hard time for so many people that I want to try to do the right thing and do a little more above and beyond to make it work out. And I don't want landlords taking advantage because they know we're paying, so they're going to put the late charge at $5 a day. I've never heard of that in my experience as a manager over 40 years. Never have seen that of a daily charge. So that bothers me, and I think we need to work with you to help you with that and make us aware if you want that help. And again, thank you for what you're doing and how you've improved the program and the message to the tenants and the landlords to do this good job that you're doing. So make sure your people know that most appreciative.
Thank you. Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Melissa, again, for the work that you're doing. And I don't believe that people are just frustrated and not going through the process. And I think we actually have gone above and beyond rather than, and there's nobody that's doing a program that is just checking the box. So that needs to be stated. But we are doing a personal check with our phone calls and our follow-ups on a personal level. And I appreciate that because to me, that says more than checking a box. That is, you're picking up the phone, you're sending an email, you're checking on them, you're asking them why, you're trying to figure out how to get the documentation. To me, that personal touch means a whole lot more than checking a box. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask Joe Lorenz to make an inquiry to Deloitte to find out what other governments are doing to provide this aid and a brief summary of what they're doing if you haven't done that already. I'm just curious because we've heard of and I've seen other counties that are doing things that are quite abbreviated. But I want to thank you, first of all, I should have said, for the work that you've done. You can't see my smile, but you're doing a really terrific job with a very tough deal. You've got people that are in trouble, and then you've got landlords that aren't cooperating, so you're kind of doing a terrific job in the middle there, and it's difficult. A confession that I don't know if I've made here before, but I used to represent the Landlord Association. I used to do evictions for them and give them advice and tell them not to say things sometimes when they we were actually thrown out of here one time for a city council meeting, but that's a long story. Anyway, just because my landlord threatened to kill one of the council members is all. Anyhow, during the presentation, let's see, what I'd like to do is ask whether, and we can do some of this too, we don't expect you to, but I wonder whether the Salvation Army or Catholic Charities or Lutheran Family Services or anything, is it possible for us to, if they made an application for funds to help people who are affected by COVID, is there some way that we could offer this help? I'm not trying to rewrite the rules, but I wonder whether that's an option that they might have. I don't know if it is or not. I don't know whether they'd qualify or I don't know who would answer that. I guess Deloitte again. And eventually, you know, what I'd like to do is something more long-term. For 20-some years, I was on the board of Holy Name Housing, and they have some terrific projects. One of them is rent-to-own, where they take the rent and put it in part of it in a savings account, and eventually the person gets to buy that house or another home, and it leads to home ownership, which is just terrific. And there's some Holy Name built, and they've done more than this, but over 500 homes during the time I was there. And they had one default, and they're a terrific operation. I wonder whether we can get the Douglas County Housing Authority or the Omaha Housing Authority involved in a rent-to-own program. And we don't do housing like that, but I just wonder whether we should think beyond where we are. But none of that diminishes what you're doing. So I want to, again, thank you very much for the effort that you're doing. But I think it's time for us to have a symposium of some sort and maybe talk about doing some things that are more permanent. Because I think some of these landlords would like to get rid of these houses, and it's a chance to buy them and to rehab them and do all those things that the Housing Authority does. Anyway, thanks a lot, and we'll just keep pushing along. Thank you very much.
And may I comment?
Commissioner Kraft.
Yes. You mentioned fraudulent applications. How many did you say you had?
Just from last week so far, I have 3 that I have already marked fraud.
I'm sorry, you blanked out for a second. How many?
Out of the 72 I'm personally working on, 3 have been marked fraud.
Okay, 3, okay. And that's just in 1 week?
Yes.
Okay. Could you email me the total number of email all of us, the total number of fraudulent applications you've received over the course of time?
I will do that.
Also, on the news the other night, I was listening to what United Way and 211 is doing on rental assistance. And their guidelines are very, very similar to ours. I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, do you know, Melissa, that I too was a little confused by that news thing on 211 and United Way, because it sounds like the same thing we're doing. It sounds duplicative of what we are doing.
There's a lot of duplication because a lot of nonprofits have gotten CARES funding as well. So there's various nonprofits that are assisting with rent assistance, mortgage, utilities, various household goods. So that's one of the things. If we're not able to assist someone, we can go ahead and refer them there. Specifically, if somebody calls us for mortgage assistance and we're not able to help, we're typically referring them to somebody that assists with mortgage. But yes, there's a variety of programs available in the community. And we have some people that have already gotten assistance from CARES funding through another organization and then have since and are applying for it with us for future months or vice versa.
All right, well, thank you. Further questions or comments from Ms. Sewick? Okay, thank you for the update. Keep up the good work.
Thanks a lot,
Larry, are you coming to comment on this? All right.
Do I need to repeat name and address again?
Yeah.
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. This may seem a little bit nonsensical, but last night I got confused, and I'm confused again this morning. But Channel 7 had a story. They had 2 stories last night. In their story, they include homeowners and mortgages. Now, I thought they were talking about the program through the county.
They weren't.
The what?
I thought they were talking about the program through the county.
Oh.
CARES assistance. They don't mention that here, homeowners and mortgages. I brought that up.
There is none. They were not talking about the county. They were talking about a different program. We have no homeowners or mortgage assistance.
I wonder how the other citizens are going to get confused. Some get mortgage help, some don't. Words matter, you know. What's the logic of, if you rent an apartment, you can get help if you can prove COVID related. Now, I still have a mortgage, so to speak, but I don't work, but I get an income from maybe some lackluster stocks. I could probably attempt to prove that because of COVID, my stocks earnings and dividends are way down. So I ought to be able to get assistance. Mike?
Thank you.
I'm done, but Mike?
You know, I think COVID, I think the rules, I could ask Joe, but I think the rules do bring up mortgages, and I don't know why we've never done that, but it seems like I've read some language in there, different rules that talk about mortgages. So I think Larry makes a point.
There are mortgage programs. When we have looked into it, the advice we were given is it's so complicated to track down by the time you pass on a mortgage 2 or 3 times to find out if the current holder of the mortgage is willing to cooperate.
Yeah, it is difficult, that's for sure. And then federally guaranteed or another program too, so it's not easy, it's complicated.
But is through 211, there is some help available, it's just not county.
Well, my final point would be, you can't discriminate. You can't pass a law that's not equal. This does not mention homeowners and mortgages.
Right.
You're only talking about renters. I'm sorry, but I think that's probably unconstitutional.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on finally to the meat of the agenda. Item D, the CARES Act update.
I'd move approval of all 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Wow. I think we'll take them one at a time, probably. I mean,
You want to try it?
well, I know, I know there's an
Oh, okay.
objection
All
on
right.
one
Excuse
of them
me.
at least.
Pardon me.
Joe, I'll.
Sorry.
Before we get in those on the agenda, I thought I'd give you a little update that I got from Dollar Energy yesterday, where we stand on the utility assistance program. As of yesterday, Dollar Assistance on the OPPD program had distributed a little over $696,000, or approximately $700,000 of the $200,000 that's been allocated. And on the MUD program, they've distributed about $670,000 of the $2 million that's been allocated. So similar to the rental assistance program, these numbers are trending up in terms of volume.
All right, thank you.
So that's the update from Dollar Energy.
Okay.
And then the 4 items we have on the CARES Act agenda today have all been vetted previously with the CARES Act committee, where the different groups have presented, and based on that, we came back with these recommendations. And given that, however, Chairman Duda would like to proceed.
I think we better take them one at a time. Item 1 is the county engineer requesting $359,227 of CARES Act funds for construction of new locker room and restroom and other COVID-19 related mitigation expenses.
Second.
Motion and a second to allocate $359,000 of CARES Act to the county engineer. Questions or comments? Commissioner Morgan.
Now, this will then go to Deloitte for final approval. It hasn't yet, has it?
We've talked to Deloitte about this, and they blessed it, so we're ready to proceed on this.
Is that true for the other 3, so I don't have to ask? Items?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, further questions or comments? Then I would call for the vote on D1.
Okay. Motion passes 6-0. Commissioner Morgan meant to vote yes.
Thank you. Item 2, funding request of $265,000 for Creighton University School of Dentistry for COVID-19 related expenses incurred at dental clinics which provide services to needy Douglas County residents.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Morgan to approve $265,000 for the Creighton University School of Dentistry. Questions or comments? Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This, I think I know the answer, but I just want it for the record. This does not include any salary cost.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Because they are Creighton employees,
Right.
they are not eligible, and so, yes, no salaries included.
Okay.
Commissioner Rogers.
Yeah, I just want to know that legally by the Accountability and Disclosure Commission, I can vote on this, but because I work there, I'm going to abstain.
I think that's the appropriate step, and thank you. Further questions or comments? Okay, Luis.
Luis Jimenez, 3306 Burke Street. I'm a proponent on item 2 to fund request of $265,000 for Creighton University School of Dentistry for COVID-19 related expenses. That department and the institution is well supported by the community. So I just like to make an aside that I don't believe that Creighton University operates in a blighted area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did he say does or doesn't?
Does not.
That doesn't have much to do with the today's action item, though.
Oh.
Larry?
Larry Store, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, 68132. I have mentioned this before, but as I read through this, once again, I question if there's not enough people getting rent assistance, that type of thing. That why in the world are we going after CARES money for physical plant, heating and air conditioning, locker rooms, lockers, all that kind of thing? It just doesn't seem fair if there's somebody being rejected on rent assistance that government bodies can come and get money for, or colleges get funding for those type of things. That should be in their budgets already, shouldn't it? That should have already been voted on, those kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to respond?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Commissioner Boyle.
Well, I do want to clarify, excuse me, both of these dental schools, and I'm familiar with the Creighton Dental School. My brother-in-law, Dr. Frank Harris, was the dean of admissions at the dental school. He's retired from there. Early on, my cousin taught there years and years ago, and I had teeth worked on in that clinic, and not the new one, of course. But in any event, they serve this. They reported when they made the application for the funds, they're serving over 7,000 people, and in all of the areas over there. It's a clinic, and they teach people what to do in that clinic, and they have great supervision. But they are serving people who have difficulty meeting and paying for their dental service. So during this COVID period, they were not able to provide those services. So that's what this is all about.
Thank you. Okay, further questions or comments to item 2? If not, I would call for the vote.
Motion passes. Commissioner Rogers abstains. Other commissioners voting yes.
Thank you. Brings us to item 3, funding request of $381,908 for the UNMC College of Dentistry and Monroe Meyer Institute for COVID-19 related expenses incurred at clinics which provide services to needy Douglas County residents. For background here, if I may, Commissioner Borgeson was asking a few questions about this morning. I would like to clarify, just so everybody understands, we did not take any salaries relative to the UNMC College of Dentistry, at least what is included in here. Does not include salaries for the College of Dentistry because we could not do it at Creighton, and we wanted to treat both dental schools similarly. And so we're trying to give them equal and fair treatment. However, the Monroe Meyer Institute does have about $248,000 of salaries included, 50% of their salaries for that 3-month period. My rationale, and I know this will be, that's what public discourse is about. My rationale for including them is the county in its role as a caregiver of last resort.
Right.
These guys are really where the rubber meets the road. They really are the ones that those of greatest need among us, so very many of them go to Monroe Meyer to meet those needs. And it's in that role, caregiver of last resort, that I felt it was appropriate, and that's why I recommended including the salaries. However, they don't have to be there, and I know Commissioner Borgeson has some concerns about that. I probably should start with a motion to approve, and then we may come back.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. Okay, thank you. All right, well, the floor is open for discussion. Commissioner Borgeson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if I could just ask the question, are the Monroe-Meyer staff state employees?
I think Wayne Stuberg's on.
I'm not sure they're considered.
Wayne just unmuted, my old buddy
Okay.
Wayne.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, the employees of the Monroe-Meyer Institute are all state employees. The individuals that are providing this service, over 90% of their salary is not state salary. It's paid for on fee for services for the clinical services that the Institute provides.
Wayne, if I may, and I don't mean to interrupt.
No, I
just
wanted him to say that one more time.
Okay, yeah, this is kind of an important clarification for us, Wayne. You are pretty much financially self-sufficient, or you're expected to be, from the university system.
That is correct. A little over 90, or just under 90% of the budget of the Monroe-Meyer Institute is off of grants, contracts, fee for services. So that only approximately 10% of what happens at MMI is funded by the state of Nebraska under our state budget allocation.
Thank you.
Thank you. That helps. And the reason it helps is because I was going to vote no for this if you were all strictly state employee salaries, because I just don't agree with that. That is a state responsibility, not our responsibility. But in saying that and hearing what you said, I agree, one, that you're not funded near enough from the state anyway for what you do. That's just my opinion. So I will be supporting the request.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Ferguson. Further questions or comments? Commissioner Morgan.
The extra 117,000 over what Creighton is getting, I know you mentioned we're trying to treat everything equal and so on. Okay, is that because of the Monroe-Meyer?
Yes. 250,000 of that is Monroe-Meyer.
Okay. I just wanted to ask that. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments to the motion? If not, I would like to call for the vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you so much. Good to see you again,
Commissioner
Wayne.
Duda, would it be appropriate for me to make a comment?
Yes, it would.
On behalf of the Monroe-Meyer Institute staff and also the families we serve, I would like to thank the board members for their consideration of this financial support to the Institute. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stuberg.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. Item 4, funding request of $1,125,000 for HVAC equipment from Metro Community College.
Motion to approve.
And a second, questions or comments on this one? Okay, I mean, they have been included in some funding from other levels, but not enough.
Yeah, the majority of that they received from the state went directly to student aid and student-related programs, where this one is, targeted for the HVAC systems for their public areas.
Okay, all right.
I have a comment, if I could.
Commissioner Boyle.
The money they've received does not go toward, cannot be used for this
Right.
kind of work, and so that's why this has occurred to us. And there's 13,000 students and all sorts of 1,400 employees and so forth. It's really what we've done for a lot of other facilities, so that's why I'm in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? We have a motion before us. I would call for the vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that the next step for all the schools, the 3 schools we just approved money for, is that we will enter into an agreement with them after which that agreement is approved and signed. That's when we'll disperse the funds. So the next step for them will be to work with our county attorney's office in putting together the agreement that states the terms of the funds. So that's what they can expect next.
Thank you, Joe. Commissioner Boyle.
I have a question for Joe, and involves Patrick and others too. I think as we near the deadline for dispersing these funds, what I'd like to do is talk about what we do with this balance that's left over in some of these accounts, whether it's the rental assistance that we're not able to get people handled, and other programs where there are balances left. I think we ought to be thinking about how we should expend those in a reasonable way that's responsible to our community.
I think what we've discussed as a matter of expediency, that when we go through this and we see how much money we have left in December, then we can go back and apply the presumptive clause where we can apply the public health and public safety salaries like we did for 1 3-month period. But we're actually eligible under the terms of the CARES Act to use those funds for 10 months. So we can again take those departments' salaries, use the presumptive clause, and use that to use any excess funds under the CARES Act, so that we would utilize all the CARES Act money, and then that money would flow back into the county's general fund and then be up to the commissioners to spend as they deem appropriate.
Okay, so we could spend that, for example, for mental health uses or any of the things that we think are necessary.
It wouldn't have the CARES Act restrictions, so it could be spent for anything that the majority of the commissioners deem
rental
appropriate.
assistance,
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
Yep.
I mean, we have always said all along that we have no intention of sending a nickel back to Washington. You know, everybody agrees on that. I did pose a question a couple weeks ago to our attorney, Teresa Urick, about my plan is on December 30th, we come in last day of the year, and whatever money didn't get expended in these accounts, we can transfer into we have enough reimbursable expense that we can transfer it into our account. My question for Teresa is, do we need to meet on December 30th in a special meeting to do that, or can we take action on December 15th to make that happen? She hadn't gotten an answer to me yet, so I'm not sure which way we're going to go. However, we are committed to not sending a nickel back to Washington.
You could, one possibility also that Teresa could speak to is you could
Can't hear you, Patrick.
This is Patrick, Bloomingdale County Administrator. One of the options that I would think you could do, but obviously talk to Teresa, is just do that in advance.
Well, that's what I asked. Can we do that?
It could be, I mean, it could be any time between now and the end of the year. Just to say any funds we may not expend will go into that.
Yeah. If she agrees with you, then that's what we'll do.
Patrick, Tuesday is December 26th, as I kind of recall. Therefore, we could meet on the 26th, which would not be a holiday.
Saturday?
If we needed to.
I don't think you need to do a special meeting, Commissioner. I just think you take any one of the meetings. It's just a contingency that if you don't spend it, by the end of the year, you will allocate it for that purpose.
In 1996, we met twice on December 30th and twice on December 31, or the 2 last days of the year. It's 29th and 30th. Anyhow, it can be done.
Teresa Urick, County Attorney's Office. As a follow-up to that conversation that we had, Commissioners, Patrick, Joe, and I met with Deloitte on September 28th and discussed a possible strategy with regards to that. My recollection is that Deloitte suggested that you have the money back and that you repurpose it, and you'll need to repurpose it at a county board meeting. I think that the board meets on December 8th and December 15th.
Correct.
And so I think you'd need to, based on that information from Deloitte, I think you'd need to have the money available to you, and you would need to repurpose it. I know that Joe and Patrick were looking at having another strategy session with regards to that, and we'll be doing that again shortly, but that's the information that I have at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
So does that lean towards we would have a year-end meeting, or?
I think, well, it depends. Do you have so you have money out with others. Do you have the money back? Let's say you gave money to, and I'll pick a fake one, Acme. You gave money to Acme for this CARES Act purpose. They had until December 30th to spend it. It doesn't look like they're going to. Have you pulled the money back, and then you have it available before the 15th to then take action and repurpose it?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
A bit, yes.
I think it's easier for your own county departments. But I think you have to have, my information from Deloitte at that time was have the money back, repurpose it before December 30th.
Okay. All right.
So, but we'll have another conversation about that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Working
Thank
on the details, but everybody's on board that we're going to use all this money if we can. Okay, anything further on CARES Act for today? Okay, budget report.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Let's move on down to item D, approve annual CPI adjustments and changes to the Pheasant Point landfill rates and adjustments to the special handling fees. Good morning, Kent.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Sorry.
You can go ahead and start talking.
New system.
Karen, can I help?
No, keep your hammer.
Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Kent Holm, Environmental Services Director. This is an annual item. Typically, we do it in October so that we can have, once approved, we have about a month notice for landfill customers, so that they have that notice. I typically have put this on the consent agenda. This year, there were a couple of changes requested by Waste Management, and I felt it was appropriate to do this in the Community Services Committee. So I wanted to go over the specifics here very, very quickly. The CPI for this year is 0.9%. There are 3 different rates that are proposed to take the 0.9% multiplier, but then they're also going to add 20 cents to those, and this was presented when these were originally instituted over a year ago. But the construction, municipal solid waste, the MSW, and construction and demolition rates for the commercial side would be adjusted by the CPI plus 20 cents, and then the special waste rate would be the CPI plus 20 cents. Waste Management is discontinuing the solidification for liquid wastes, and so those liquid rates are going to be not part of, or they're just going away, excuse me. Another requested change is that the transfer trailer rates, and these were initiated last year, back in the spring, those transfer trailer rates now would be taken off the public side of this and be negotiated in a similar fashion to the special event projects, which was authorized back in 2009. So this just gives a little more flexibility and enables Waste Management to have a little bit better level playing field in terms of the competition that we're seeing with other landfills and so on, and being able to go after waste streams that typically should be coming here, but have not, and have been diverted to other landfills. And then the special handling fees, there are several of those that are going to be adjusted to reflect some increased cost. These special handling fees, once they were instituted a few years ago, have not been adjusted. So Waste Management is requesting that adjustment. So, and I know there's a lot of stuff on this particular slide, but this just gives you an idea of the rates that are out there that will be public rates. You can see the current rate per ton, and then you can see after the proposed, the CPI adjustment plus those 20-cent adjustments to this particular rate, and the special waste other than asbestos. Those are the ones that get the extra 20 cents there. The liquids for special handling, that's no longer going to be taken, so that's taken off the public rate sheet. And then the 2 transfer trailer rates there, those would now be proposed to be negotiated. The special handling fees, here you can see the current fee and the proposed fee. There are some adjustments there that are specified in the resolution, and those are just reflected here. Again, the liquid, there's 2 different liquid rates, one for drums and the other for the 250-gallon totes. Because Waste Management is no longer offering those services, those are being removed from the rate sheet. So with that, happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Thank you. Those pages regarding scale rate description, are they included in the information? I don't see them here.
Yes, I provided all that in a supplemental sheet that should have been with your information from yesterday.
You provided it electronically?
I provided it to Sharon, yeah, and she indicated she was going to put that with the rest of the material.
Okay,
so
well, it's kind of the key exhibit, and it's not included in our packet, so could you forward that to us, please?
Okay, yes, I certainly will.
Right, I mean, it makes it difficult to see it if it's just on the screen and we don't have it physically, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Could you bring that up again, because that's kind of the meat of the matter, and we don't have that. Okay. So if you did the totals of the current rate per ton and the proposed rate per ton, all the way down to the bottom, what would be the projected fiscal impact of this change?
Commissioner, good question, and I don't have that answer for you right now.
Okay. Presumably, the fiscal impact would be an increase in fees, right?
Correct, on the waste management side, right? The fee from a tonnage standpoint, the county, for the most part, gets $5 per ton for all the tonnage that comes in. There are a few exceptions with that. So the county's fee for this is dependent on the amount of tonnage that comes in. And we would be looking at, if you look at the transfer trailer rates, for example, those are targeted to now try to come after some new waste streams to provide additional tonnage. The CPI adjustment does not adjust the county's portion from a tonnage standpoint. It's only adjusting what waste management's portion is.
Sure, and what I'm asking is, what does that adjustment result in dollar-wise? You know, we're approving a rate, fine, and I take it for granted that you've looked at this and you're recommending this. Tell us what that means in terms of dollars from what Waste Management receives now to what Waste Management would projectedly receive under the proposed rate per ton increase.
Okay, I can make that calculation.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Do we have a motion on this one? All right, Commissioner Rogers moves and I will second to approve the waste management rate increases.
Mr. Chair, I'll be abstaining. I have I cited the site years and years ago, and I am still involved with a client who has revenue from the landfill.
Since I am so old, I remember you doing that. I appreciate your abstaining. That is the appropriate action. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions or comments? Then I would call for a vote on the motion.
Oops.
Motion passes. Commissioner Boyle abstains. Commissioner Morgan did not vote. He stepped out of the meeting, and everyone else voting yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kent, you really do a great job.
Yes, he does.
On everything.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, are we, get lost here. I think we're about done, aren't we? Are we, Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Under the Health and Human Services Committee, there will be a hearing on Thursday, November 5th, 2020 at 10 a.m. in 903. We're going to discuss the CARES Assistance Program's progress. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we do have need of an executive session. It's not going to be as long as it sounds. We have several items. We have litigation, negotiations, and legal advice.
Motion to go into executive session for those reasons.
Motion on the second to go into executive session for litigation, negotiations, and legal advice. Questions or comments to the motion? Then could we please vote?
Commissioner Kavanaugh. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Aye.